Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. Hey, Camp Hacker listeners, it's Travis. We're so excited to announce our newest Go Camp Pro show, the Camp Owners Podcast. We love the work that Kelly and Howie are doing on the show and can't wait to hear all the ideas that they've been working on for the past several months. They've got some super smart camp owners joining them as guests this season. On this first episode, they chat with the inimitable Steve Baskin from Camp Champions in Texas. We hope that you enjoyed the first episode of the Camp Owners Podcast, even if you're not currently a camp owner. There are lots of great takeaways for all camp directors. Please subscribe in the app that you're listening to us on and expect a new show every month until the summer. Thanks for the evening, friends.
This is the Camp Owners Podcast from Go Camp Pro, exploring issues and best practices that professionals in the private camp industry face each and every day. You can find our show notes at gocamp.pro/ownerspod. This episode of the Camp Owners Podcast is brought to you by CampBrain. CampBrain is a robust camp tool designed not only to manage summer camps, but also manage your conference center and fundraising needs, all in one database. Since 1994, CampBrain has been innovating and constantly adding new features. Look for the Camp Store module being released this spring. For more information, visit them at campbrain.com. We want to thank all of you for tuning in to this first episode of the Camp Owners Podcast. If you have any feedback for us, please do send me an email at matt@gocamp.pro. We would love to hear your feedback and find out what kind of shows you want to hear in the future from the Camp Owners Podcast. Thanks for listening, Camp Pros. Let's turn it over to Howie and Kelly.
Hello, camp friends. Welcome to the Camp Owners Podcast, a space for camp owners to talk about the unique aspects of camp ownership and get inspired by each other. We're going to sit down with camp industry experts, leaders, and fellow camp owners to hear how the camp dream transpired for them, learn from each other, and discuss some of the big issues in the private camp industry. Hi, everyone. My name's Howie Grossinger. I'm talking to you from Toronto, up in the Great White North. We have a little bit of snow these days. I'm the co-owner of Camp Robin Hood, a day camp in the suburbs of Toronto, and I also am a partner with 2 residential camps in Northern Ontario.
Hi, everybody. I am Kelly Schuna. I am a co-owner and director of Hidden Pines Ranch, which is a day camp in Stillwater, Minnesota. And I am so excited for our first episode, Howie.
So am I, Kelly. I thought we would just start, as this is our first episode, to just maybe tell the audience a little bit about ourselves and sort of our interest in sort of steering the ship in this very new podcast. I thought that maybe you should start, and maybe you can tell a little bit about your story and how we all are here today.
All right, this is going to be hard to keep short-winded here, Howie. It's hard for camp people, I think, to have their story be short. But my husband and I bought his childhood camp 4 years ago, next Friday, which is exciting. So we are the third family to own Hidden Pines Ranch. My husband was a camper here and a counselor. I grew up going to camp and working for a special needs camp. So that was my camp history and where the camp dream started for me. And then we had this kind of pipe dream together, and we called the owner and said, hey, do you have a short list of people that might be interested? And he kind of was like, oh, and wasn't the right time. And then we called him back, and actually, no, my mother and father-in-law sent my kids to camp for Christmas. They sent all their grandchildren, and I walked onto the property and had that, okay, I get this. This is your place, honey. And we went up to the owner at the open house and said, we were serious. And he said, okay, let's talk. And we had some heart palpitations and said, okay. So it took a couple of years to make it work, but here we are. So we are about to go into our 5th summer as camp owners of a privately, independently held camp here in Minnesota. And that's how it all started for me, Howie.
Amazing. For me, my story is a little bit of, I married the boss's daughter, I think is part of my story. I've been lucky to be part of our day camp for the last 35 years. I was dating my now wife of almost 30 years and took a couple years to get the nerve to ask my girlfriend's dad for a summer camp job. And I ended up just loving it. I went into teaching for 10 years. And for about the last, I would say 20 years, I've been part of senior leadership of camp. I left teaching full time, and we're part of a 60-year family business. Our camp is celebrating its 75th season this year. And in the early 90s, not only did my wife and I make full-time camp and owning a private camp our life passion, we ended up exploring the opportunity to expand and get into the overnight camp business. And since then, we were able to partner with some really dear friends and get involved in that. So the camp business is, like many of us, is an incredible passion, learning always. And the opportunity to be part of this particular podcast and meet and listen to and from amazing people in the industry, no matter how long you've been in this business, is a great opportunity. And I know that both of us are super, super excited to get things going.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited, Howie, because I feel like my experience when I go to camp professional development or meetings is I much more talk with individuals that work for a corporate entity or nonprofit camp versus privately held camp. So I was so excited for the opportunity to be able to talk with other people that were living this life at the same time. So this is great. I wanted to let listeners know what they can expect from this podcast. So we will be doing monthly shows for season 1 before we get our renewal contract, Howie. And we will be doing topics such as camp as a business, camp insurance, buying and selling camps, work-life balance. I really like to interview a lot of people about how they keep that scale balanced. Pricing, staff training, and engagement. Above all, we just want to be useful to the camp world. And if you have any feedback or suggestions for future topics, please get in touch with our producer, Matt, via matt@gocamp.pro.
We're really excited to get things started with a really amazing guest for our first episode. Many of you in our industry will know the name Steve Baskin. Steve is a well-known camp professional who has spoken around the world on various topics in the camp industry, a former chair of the very famous and well-attended Tri-State Camp Conference. He is the executive director of Camp Champions in Texas. He is from what I know of Steve, is a former TEDx speaker. So he's done the TEDx thing, which is very impressive. And I think for this very first episode, I'm really excited, and I know you share this, Kelly, is that Steve brings an incredible background in business and will help us explore this really unique element of combining the passion we have for camp and the realities of running a business. So with that, Steve, welcome to the episode. And I'd love for you to maybe take a couple more minutes just to maybe elaborate on the things you've done and what you bring.
All right. Well, first of all, let me tell you that I am delighted and honored to be part of this podcast. Certainly the first one puts a little extra pressure on me, but I hope to prove myself worthy. I guess I'll give you a short version. I fell in love with camp as an 8-year-old. And I was sort of a scrawny, asthmatic kid, and camp was the place where I learned I could be spectacular. I was a camp counselor, but eventually drifted off and went to business school and was an investment banker and briefly a consultant, and then decided that if I had, 10 lives, I'd live one of them as an investment banker consultant. But I didn't have 10 lives. I had one. And I wanted to do something that combined my passion for running an organization with my passion for transforming lives. And it turns out that summer camp was the perfect place to do that. And in 1992, while I was still in business school, my brother and I decided we were going to go buy a camp. And we spent the better part of a summer talking to about 12 different camps. None of them wanted to sell. So we did the one thing we swore we would never do, which is start a camp from scratch. The answer is yes, it can be done. And no, I would never try it again. 3 years later, the owners of Camp Champions, which was about to celebrate its 30th year, came to us and said, hey, would y'all be interested in buying our camp? And we bought the camp. We've just about to have, I guess, our 25th summer there. I think that's right. And Yeah, over the course of the time, we've tried a few other things. We did something that predated Bunk One and Camp Group, not Camp Group, Camp Minder, which did not go well. It was called I Love Camp, and it lasted for about 2 years, and then got blown up in the internet boom and bust. Also partners with some fantastic people in a resident camp in North Carolina called Camp Pinnacle, and a day camp in Sharon, Massachusetts called Everwood Day Camp. So I guess I would say that, mine has been a opportunity to mate what I'm passionate about, which is impacting kids' lives, while still being able to sort of practice things that get me excited, like how to make an effective and powerful organization, how to motivate people, how to, pursue excellence, and how to make a career out of something you love.
That's great. And I know that from hearing you speak at conferences and from afar, that you offer really amazing perspective on things, and it really comes through the passion that you have. So to get started on this is really exciting. I can just add a little anecdote. I can very much relate to the camp from scratch example that you gave, because when I had the opportunity with my wife and our longtime friend and business partner, Saul Birnbaum, to buy Camp Walden, we had gone through the exercise of trying to buy a camp from scratch and finding a piece of property. And ultimately, the gentleman who sold us his camp that he founded looked at us and said, "You can't do today what I did in 1969, but my camp may be for sale. So if you're interested, we should start talking." So the effort we put into this camp from scratch, which was an incredibly educational process, ultimately ended up with us purchasing a well-established camp. So that experience I can very much relate to. So that's great.
Right. Well, I will not bore you with the details, but the math of starting a camp from scratch simply doesn't work, because the amount of outlays out front are massive, and it takes a long time to get enough customers so that you even achieve break even. So unless you have very, very, very patient money, or money that doesn't want or need any return whatsoever, it just doesn't work. And,
The phrase that was shared with us was, "Howie, you don't have pockets that deep," was the phrase that I was shared with me, which I totally got very quickly. Kelly?
I love hearing you say that, Steve, about pretty much being impossible almost to start your own camp unless your pockets and your money is very patient. Because when my husband and I were in the process of trying to purchase our camp, we, a business deal is a business deal, right? Whether it's camp people or not camp people. But there was times where we thought, okay, let's just walk away. Maybe we should just start our own. And my mother-in-law, who is an entrepreneur, she said, "No way. It will take you at least 10 years, Kelly, to build a client base and facilities and all of that." So I think that's really interesting to hear you say that, because I think it's very true. So I have been tasked with asking you our questions that we are going to ask every guest on all of our episodes. And you answered one already, which was great. It was, what was your camp dream and when did it start to become a reality? And you answered that for us. I love when you said camp showed you that you could be spectacular. I feel like that could be on your poster on your website, because that stuck out to me. I really like that a lot.
Well, my mom used to say that camp gives you a chance to try out new versions of yourself. And if you are an only child, you get to learn what it's like to share spaces. If you are the younger child of the local football star, which was my situation, but I was an asthmatic, so I couldn't play football. I got to be I wasn't anyone's younger brother. I got to be me. And, if you're doing it intentionally at camp, you can find what makes every kid special. And you give them a chance to try out new personal narratives, and a narrative that says, no, I'm not the dyslexic kid, so I'm stupid. No, all those compensatory skills that I have developed as a dyslexic child makes me a spectacular camp friend. Or, whatever your challenges are at home, we could find a way at camp to have a kid feel special. And that's really the part that I connected with. And when I had the idea or the possibility of getting into the camp world, that was the gift I wanted to find a way to give. And when I get really geeky, and really obsessive, I'm asking the question, what needs to be true for every child to figure out what their current narrative is? What do you want their narrative to be? And what do we need to do to help change that narrative?
So when you were 8, was the dream, I want to run a camp, or was it just a feeling about this has gotten to my core and I want this to be a part of my life?
When I was 8, I just didn't want to be a disappointment, right? I mean, when you have everyone expecting, like I grew up in Midland, Texas, which is where Friday Night Lights was made about, Midland and Odessa. And my older brother was kind of a legend because he was the all-district center and he wasn't even 5'8", right? So he was called Mighty Mouse and they wanted me to be the Mighty Mouse, which was great for him, but wasn't great for me. And my parents told me I was okay, but other people would give you one of these.
Right.
Right. And, sad eyes, poor baby. And I started to believe that I wasn't worthy. And so it wasn't like at camp, I tell people I wish I had looked up at Orion that night, or I guess Scorpio, and said, someday I will own a camp. I didn't. I was just so glad that camp had given me this gift. It was only later when I had the benefit, right? My aunt and uncle own a camp, and they had asked me to look at, some of the things they were trying to do. And I began to realize you can actually make a living doing this.
Right.
You're not going to buy a yacht. You're not going to buy a private island, but you can have a really nice living doing something you're passionate about. And that's, I think, probably in my mid-20s, while I was at business school, I realized, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, we often say, like, when people ask, and we get the classic questions, like, what are you doing the rest of the year kind of stuff. And we can explore a little bit of that. And I can see all the eyes rolling and as people are listening in their cars or wherever they're listening. But, at the end of the day, I think many of us, and I know I can only speak for myself, is I really feel this is a real privilege, this opportunity to do this and impact people the way we do. But I think we can all agree, like, we really love our lives. We're really lucky to do what we do. And the fact that we can have these conversations and encourage people, how many people have you crossed paths with who are former staff who will say, listen, I wish I was doing what you're doing and all that stuff. And there is a romance for sure with the camp ownership, camp director space that we occupy. And some of the realities of 2020 versus 1980, they've shifted, and maybe we'll get into some of that as well. But the reality is that, the camp dream, for some of us, I think we're all really lucky to be doing what we're doing. And I think it's great to have you, Steve. Okay. It is now time for us to do some necessary work to give a big shout out to our sponsor of this podcast, Camp Brain. Camp Brain camp management software serves 1,300 plus camps. They've been doing this since 1994 with 45 plus dedicated staff to meet your every need. With core modules for camper, conference center, and fundraising, Camp Brain has all the features to meet your camp's needs. They are always innovating the software and releasing new features based on their deep knowledge of the camping industry. For instance, look for their new Camp Store module coming this spring. It will be integrated with Square to provide an excellent point of sales experience, inventory management, as well as an online store. I'm really excited that Camp Brain is part of this podcast. I have been associated with Camp Brain myself, and I know there's a lot of options in the camp management software in our industry. Camp Brain is a company that I've been connected with since 1994. Been really proud to see the growth that Rob and Shane and their team have developed over the years, and just really, really honored that they would, come on board with this podcast and support what we're doing. So if anyone is considering a move to some new software or rethinking what they're already doing, I encourage you to reach out to Camp Brain. You can check them out at campbrain.com, or you can call 866-485-8885. Okay, so we now are going to sort of move towards some of the specific topics that I think Steve can really offer some insight to and generate some really good discussion amongst the three of us. So I think that at its core, Steve, the question we wanted to kick off with is, in your view, what does it mean, to view your camp and organization as a business? I think that's a jumping off point, so to speak, for why we're doing what we're doing.
Well, I struggle a little bit when people ask me about this, and I think a little bit stems from when I first came into camp. I came straight out of business school. I really thought I had a competitive advantage. I thought I was going to be able to use the best practices that I had learned. And I think I came in thinking it was more of a business and more of a place that you need to be thinking, and not as much a place that you need to be inspiring. I needed to realize it has to be a mission. It has to be a passion. And if you're not serving all your stakeholders, your employees, as well as your parents and as well as your vendors, you're not going to do well. And in that way, a camp's a business the same way a great school's a business. So this is not, I don't want to say that camp is a money-making machine. If you want to make money, there are better ways to do it. But I do think that there are certain disciplines. There are certain practices that enable us to do things at a higher level and have a better impact with children. And one of the things is finding your way into the virtue circle. And the virtue circle goes a little bit like this. You do a great job with your families. They're delighted. So they give you word of mouth referral to other people. So your camp can grow a little bit. You also can raise price a bit. As a result, the next year, you have a little bit more cash flow. So you can invest in better people, a little bit more training, and maybe build something new cool at camp. Well, now the satisfaction level of your families goes up even more. So now you're able to, maybe hire Michael Brandwine to come do a session for you during orientation, right. And you build an even cooler new thing. And now you get to hire a full-time recruiter or a full-time, another professional that works with you year-round. So the quality of the camp goes up again. So once again, your retention levels go up, and you can raise price, and you end up in a place where, not because you're focused on cash flow, but because it happens because your revenues are growing, you're being disciplined on your costs, and you're being thoughtful and strategic on your cost. But if you control cost and revenue grows, you end up with cash flow that enables you to make the product better. The opposite of that is the death spiral, which happens with smaller camps. They don't quite have enough money to maybe fix that roof, and then it leaks a little bit, so no one comes back from that cabin the next year, and now you can't quite fix the septic system, or you don't hire another person, and you're working yourself too hard, and you never get back out again.
Yeah,
I think that.
I really love that too. I think, the virtue circle, I really love that concept. At the end of the day, as a trend in our business, raising prices every year is a typical approach that we all take. I think at the end of the day, clients want to see us reinvesting. And I think they want us to see us, being able to demonstrate and articulate to them the ways in which, we are enhancing the experience. And as both Steve and Kelly, it could be 1 year, it could be infrastructure. The next year, it could be a high ropes area. Another year, it could be you, as you said, bringing in a Michael Brandwine or enhancing the development of your staff. But I think at its core is just the relationship you build with your clients about, we're here, annually to raise the bar, so to speak.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that I have a word for that now, Steve, because for me, I just interviewed someone for our first year-round position, which I saw you mention, which I'm like, I'm doing the cycle. But he had said to me, he was coming from a different camp, and he'd been directing it for a while. And he said, well, how do you advertise? And just word of mouth. And it's exciting for me to hear. I mean, some of these things also have been passed on from the previous owners, but now to have a word, virtue cycle, and I'm going to look that up. I love that, because I really do believe that running it with mission and virtue cycle and making decisions based on that will drive the business. It's, without even thinking about it, it is just that natural fuel, if you will, to keep your business growing. But I love that. I think that's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think I inadvertently called it a circle, but it's a cycle. So
Yeah.
I
Cycle,
apologize for that.
circle
Yeah.
of virtue.
It's
I like them both.
It's the cross-border translation. I know. You'll get used to it.
That must be what it is.
I'm going to use that as often as I can.
In Canada, we call this the virtue circle.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. So I wanted to ask you too, Steve, which I wanted to add at some point in this podcast. I have a tendency to now want to call you Steve Sir, because I would be following your 4 R's. I did do my homework because this is the first time that I'm meeting you. And so I wanted to, responsibility, respect, reaching out, and reasonable risk are your 4 R's. So I am tempted a little bit to call you Steve Sir, but because this is more casual, I won't. But I did like that. So
I will tell you, my children have always called me Steve Sir.
Okay.
And I will tell you, if I'm in an airport and you hear someone say, Mommy or Daddy, 20 heads turn around. But if I hear Steve Sir, I know it's someone who knows me. So I know it sounds strange to you, but that's their camp name.
Right.
And even our camp dog is Dodger Ma'am. The camper, so everyone is worthy of Sir and Ma'am. It's not just the owners.
Right.
It's especially not just the owners. It's, it's Howie Sir. It's, it's everyone is worthy of respect. And it's a verbal reminder.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kelly Ma'am, I know this all sounds strange to you, but I'll respond to Steve Sir and I won't blink.
Well, up north,
Yeah.
we don't use it as much, but I do like it as a tactic for my children. So I might have to become Kelly Ma'am.
I will say this. My wife, who came from Boston area, first came down here and thought it's the strangest thing in the world, and now she loves it. So Susie Ma'am has adjusted.
Does it have like some Southern though, ma'am? Like would I be Kelly Ma'am or is it ma'am?
You'd be Kelly Ma'am.
Okay.
No, there's no need to make it sound like we're down south or we're going to have to get under the veranda. No, it's just.
I do like that though. You know. So, okay. All right. Now that I've derailed us, Steve, sir.
It's all good.
My next question, kind of carrying off of what Howie had asked you, but what do you see as a major difference between privately held camps and corporate or nonprofit or organizationally held camps?
Well, I guess there are a few just sort of obvious ones. One is that if you're executive director of a not-for-profit camp, you don't think in terms of passing it on to your children. You don't have estate issues. You don't have succession issues. It's going to be decided by a board. That's a big difference. Another one is if you run a not-for-profit camp and you have a couple bad years, if you have a good board with a couple deep pockets, they can help you out. If you run a private camp and you have a couple bad years and you default on your debt, you're done. And I think what it does is that it puts a little extra ownership into it. I also think, and my wife and I've talked about this a lot, is that you feel really deeply personally responsible for every child. And I think maybe part of it is that we're trying to make it clear that we are not a for-profit business. We are, but we aren't. So by God, your child is precious to us. And if your child is sick, we're losing sleep. And I know, some of my best friends run fantastic, inspiring not-for-profit camps, special needs camps, agency camps, who care for their campers every bit as much as anyone else. But I think there's this level of ownership because it kind of has your name on it. And it's reflecting who you are. And the camp's failures are your failures. And not just emotionally, but financially. So there really is a downside that, you lose your camp, you also lose your home. I don't know about y'all. I live at my camp. My home is middle of my camp. So, if the camp goes away, I'm homeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also, I find very interesting to find the correct balance with that internal feeling and how you project that to your staff, right? So I feel like, I feel we do a really good job at staff development. Kids have grown up at our camp and the care and concern we've shown, and then all of a sudden they become staff. And as we sometimes say to our staff, the stakes have changed, right? You're now taking care of other people's children. And I would never want my staff to feel that if they messed up, they're messing with my living, but they sort of are. But you've got to find this kind of really appropriate, genuine, authentic balance of, having faith and trust in the people who are delivering on all the promises you're making to our families, because often they are coming very personally by us, right? Whether it's a home visit or on the phone. Kelly, I'm sure you're constantly having conversation with moms and dads about, your investment in the experience, and then we're passing them off to our staff. But, I hear what you're saying, Steve, around, and you live on the property. So I find that we're all navigating that fine line between, yes, it's our living, and how do we temper freaking people out that they're messing with what Howie and Sari are doing or something like that.
Well, let me give you maybe a thought on that might make it easier, is that I finally got past thinking you're messing with my livelihood, because in order for that to be true, you're doing something that is deleterious to a child or to the child's family. And that in and of itself is enough for me to take action.
Yeah.
So forget my business. I don't care about that. You're doing something that is going to make a child feel unsafe, or make a child not just help them learn how to resolve a conflict. You're not doing your job. And I would respond the exact same way if it were my business or not my business, as long as I stay focused on the kid.
Yeah.
The bigger challenge for me is, my wife and I joke that we're sort of a 20-year overnight success story. I mean, there were some years early on where we had 4 kids in, under the age of 5, and we were living in 2 bedrooms with 1 bathroom and struggling to make stuff work. Well, we've reached a level of success now where that's no longer true. And once again, we don't own yachts, we don't own islands, but we're doing pretty well. The house we live in is a nice house, and I'm conscious sometimes that I don't want the staff who are working their tails off for not great pay, because camps can't afford great pay, to be resentful. And it's a huge priority to me that if I cannot demonstrate daily during camp, and especially during orientation, that we're about the mission, then we will fail. That is maybe the single most important challenge, is that even though we've got the gray hair and we seem to have achieved a level of success, we're still about the kids.
Yeah. And for me, and I know Kelly will probably want to jump in as well, is I feel like that last example you gave has been sort of passed down from, Sari's dad, Larry Bell, who's essentially our founder for 60 years, is, when I got into this idea of possibly buying a camp with my wife and a business partner, he would be very forthright in using, I never thought of what I do as a business. And I think we were, and while he is a good businessman, I think all the things you said came to the fore, It really was the backdrop of everything that we do or try to do is around, not putting pressure on people to think that everything stands on everything they do, and that we're supportive and we trust them, and that we're creating a really loving and, effective environment for our kids and our staff. So with that, I'll just pass it on to Kelly. I know you probably had a thought.
Well, I was going to say, if you're not watching on YouTube, I was doing a lot of active listening for both of those answers that Steve gave about, it's reflecting on you and your family, and especially what you just last said, Steve, about, your home and not wanting staff to feel resentful about what they're paid and what goes into camp. And I think about that a lot. Just even like the car that I drive in our community, and not wanting to ever give people a reason to be like, oh, well, that's why camp is so expensive. But also, if we go on vacation as a family, I feel very hyper aware of sharing anything on social media. And I, again, though, the flip side of that is I'm proud, and it's important for us to travel, and that's how we rejuvenate, or whatever it is we choose to do. I should not have to feel bad about that, but I guess I'm more not feeling bad about it, but aware of it, and the perception that it is on my family as the owner of camp.
We one day my wife and I woke up and realized we never had a summer vacation with our children. And so we decided we were going to do all of them at once. And 7 years ago, we pulled them out of school for 6 months and backpacked Southeast Asia, Europe. And I blogged every single day. And part of my reason was parents wanted to hear what these crazy camp directors were doing. But the other thing was to provide 100% evidence that we were living close to the ground. We were eating street food in Vietnam. We were not staying at the Four Seasons. We were just, had piled up all those family vacations that we weren't having. The thought you're describing is, oh my Lord, I don't want people to think, oh yes, the camp director is on a world trip. No, it was an adventure.
Yeah.
And I find it very interesting that we're a very unique industry that way, because I don't think people in our communities look at their lawyers and their doctors in the same way.
No, they don't.
When they're out on the town or doing those things. So and I think that just speaks to the personal responsibility that we take on very genuinely about, delivering what we deliver, and how careful we are to project what is consistent with our values and the mission, as you said, of what we do every summer. So that's great.
So Steve, we want to ask you a little bit about what you think is unique or unexpected, or a unique or unexpected challenge of being in the camp business. And I feel like you've talked a lot. That's basically what we also included in the past couple of minutes. But is there anything else that you would add about what's unique or unexpected as a challenge of being in this industry?
Well, there's two things that are unique. One is you need to be in the business of inspiring, and I mean in the most literal term possible, young people. And if you can't connect with and inspire and share a passion with 18 to 25-year-olds, you're done, right? I mean, and they can smell inauthenticity a mile away.
Yeah.
So one of the huge challenges is just being true to this amazing calling we have. The other thing that makes it unique is, where else are people giving you their child? And particularly with overnight camp, these are parents that won't let their kids ride around the block without, following them sometimes. And they're wearing helmets. They're worried. They've been told the world's a scary place. And then we're saying, hey, I know the world's a scary place. Come send your child to me, a relative stranger, for 14 to 21 days. And that is, where else does that happen? And that is such a unique challenge. And it forces us to be highly, highly skilled in not only working with children, but understanding the fears and needs of the parents themselves.
Right. Yeah, and I think that more so than ever, I'm sure we're all finding ourselves doing a lot of parent coaching, a lot of, more than ever, they're looking to us for advice more than ever. Tell me what I should do with my kid. This is what's happening in school. I find that our industry has become much more extended to the rest of the year than sometimes even the summer, because of, this great responsibility. And I think we've proven it, that people look to us in a way that they trust, advice, perspective, et cetera. So I think
we should, and we need to be that way.
Yeah.
And I'll say two ways. But if you looked at what camps charged 30 years ago, compared to what the consumer price index is, and now what we charge now versus the consumer price index, camps have raised the prices a lot more than inflation. We better be doing more than we were 30 years ago. If 30, 40 years ago we were in the recreation business, we better be in the education and youth development business. And if we can't help parents, we don't deserve to have their child. The second thing, I'm going to sort of two thoughts. One is, I blog every day during camp, and we have 100% of the parents' attention at that time. So that's when I do most of my parent education. The second thing is 4 or 5 years ago, we created a whole new position called the Director of First-Time Families. And this person's only job is to specifically address the needs unique to a first-time camper and a first-time camper parent. A returning parent at either of your camps is now a trusted ally. The first-time parent has no reason to trust you at all. You're a stranger with their child. And we begin to realize there's a huge asymmetry between the needs and wants of a new family and a returning family. And why are we communicating with both groups in the same way? So we have one person whose one job is to focus on the needs and wants of first-time families. And involves, I won't go into the details of what that includes unless you'll want me to, but that was a big sea change for us, because the returning families don't want to change anything.
Yeah. I think sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
And the new families don't care about what you have or haven't changed. Is it safe? Is my child going to be loved? Is my child going to grow?
And is my child in the same bunk with all their friends that I want them to be? It's usually the returning stuff, but
Right.
that's par for the course. I'm curious, actually, with this role for first-time families, a lot of what we do with first-time families is with the lead up to camp. Steve, maybe you can just quickly describe some of the things you're doing tangibly with these new families, maybe from the time of registration to the first day of camp, maybe within the first couple of days, just very quickly, just give people a sense of
Absolutely
what you're doing.
Every one of the families will get at least 30-minute phone call from a director with specific questions about what do you want true for your child. It's not how much fun they're going to have, but here are different ways they are going to grow. What are your goals for your child? The child will receive a special welcome to camp package that will have some fun stuff in it, but it will also include branded sunscreen and branded water bottle. So we're sending a message, hey, we're worried about the stuff you're worried about. The parent will also receive a special package that includes Michael Thompson's book, Homesick and Happy, and a gift for the parents as well. We'll also have a series of 2 or 3 different emails that will say things like, your friends are looking at you like you're crazy for trusting us. We want to earn the right to make you feel like you made a great decision. Once they're at camp, we then have the first 48 to 72 hours. We have a team of people that follow the new campers, and they will send a special email with a photograph and an anecdote for first-time camper families only. So the parents get this extra something that just says, yeah, we know your child. They've made a friend. Her name is Nancy. She loves, they both love to go to canoeing, and their counselors' names are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of the first year camper event. It involves hiring some other people, but it's absolutely been a game changer for us.
What, one person? Is that a multi-person role, or
I have a full-time person.
Yeah.
And then last year we would have 5 or 6 boy counselors and 5 or 6 girl counselors who are the ones actually getting to know the kids.
Gotcha. Amazing. So, we're thinking about in this podcast, not only addressing issues of the seasoned camp owner, but also looking at, for those listening and maybe watching when we post a YouTube version of this,
Yes.
for the person who's aspiring to become a camp owner, what insider tip, and I'm sure there are many, and I'm sure the 3 of us can come up with a healthy list, but for a new or up and coming camp owner, what thoughts immediately come to mind as far as things you'd like them to think about if they're going to get into, the private camp ownership piece?
Okay, so I want to make sure I understand your question. These are people who are already there and want to get better, or people who are on the outside trying to get in?
I think people who are either fresh or people just starting to get into it. Early people to the.
Okay, so they're in the camp industry, because trying to get into the camp industry is a hard thing to do.
Yeah, for sure.
But once you're there, I think the first thing I would do is, you think you can't maybe afford some of the conferences, you absolutely go to the conferences. Yeah. The Tri-State Camp Conference is a really good one because it has a disproportionately large number of private camps. So if you wanted to go to sessions that are focused on things that the needs and wants of new campers, or new camp owners, that'd be a great place to go. There are organizations like WAKE, the Western Association of Independent Camps. There's CODA, which is the Camp Owners and Directors Association, which is all private camps that are affinity groups that are all camp owners and directors.
Right.
So I would go to conferences. I'd find out who are the smartest people in the room, and I would go up and introduce myself and say, "Can I buy you a drink?"
Right.
And I will say I learned more about how to run camp by sitting in the bar at the Hilton on 6th Avenue back when Tri-State was there, just listening to people like Dave Tager and Jay Jacobs and Roger Christian, just these guys who were the legends for me. And I would feel like I was just sitting at granddad's or dad's knee and learning, and just ask the questions, because camp directors are by their nature, they want other people to succeed. We don't have competitors. We have comrades.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
cheers to that, Steve. So at the next conference, I'll see you at the bar because I would say that even though I have 15 years of camp experience, I only have 5 years, 5 years, depending how you're talking, as a camp owner. So I would consider myself in the new category because it changes when you own it versus working at a camp.
It does.
So I would say I can really relate to that because that's how I have felt after my first year of just praying that I didn't burn it down and no one died. Then the next year, you think, okay, how can I put my own stamp on this? And how can I make it my own? And what can I learn? And I could have done that way better. So conferences for me, I am a sponge. I can't talk to enough people. I can't go to enough stuff. I think that is something I didn't know existed in the camp community. And I have been so grateful for. And if I didn't have children and a husband, I would attend all of them all the time. But I would second that notion that I think that is a really helpful tip.
Well, and let me give you one caveat is don't be shy about asking about 5 different people. If you could only talk to 2 people, who would they be?
Right.
No, because I remember Phil Lilienthal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love Phil Lilienthal. And there was about 3 different guys. And I used to joke, if I went to a breakout session and Phil and one of these other men and women were in the room, I knew I had gone to the best session. And then I would just pursue them later and say, when do you have a few minutes? And I was lucky enough to get an hour and a half from Maury Stein before he passed away.
Wow.
When we were just thinking about going into the industry. And I've told people ever since that I will always make time to talk to a new camp director because Maury Stein made time to talk to me. And that's just one of the things you need to be willing to do.
It sure is. And, it's such a wonderful aspect of our industry that people do applaud everyone's success. Everyone wants to be successful. There's lots of kids to go around and we all benefit when we're all doing good work and continuing to move this forward the way that we do for sure. It's wonderful. I have the same thing, Go ahead. I was just going to say that, the names that you said I'm very familiar with back in those Manhattan conference days back in the day. And I feel like, the private camp industry in Canada, just for our listeners, is very focused in our province in Ontario. It's really interesting, the landscape of camping in Canada. We're a very large geographical country, but not-for-profits, church, boys and girls clubs, YMCA, predominate outside of Ontario. So we have a very small, relatively small group that's very similar to what I would describe as the Northeast culture of overnight and day camps. But so many of the young people that I've had to work with, they sit in a room with some of the names in our area, whether it be my father-in-law, Larry Bell, or, if they listen to other people and listen, he's passed on, but Jack Pierce is legendary, and many people, and his camp Towingo is world renowned, and people, so many camp professionals have benefited from the many years of watching him and listening to him. So those are just some examples from north of the border, but you're right. We're a very giving profession, and young people just need to, be connected and not be shy, because people will give them the time for sure.
I'll throw one other thing is I would, even if you don't think you have the time or money, I would start volunteering with the ACA.
Yeah.
Every moment I've found my partners in my other camp operations. I found solutions to almost every problem, not just from the conferences, but by volunteering. And it's almost this sort of weird karmic justice.
Yeah.
If you pour into the ACA, you're going to find that mentor you need, a very person that can answer the one question you have. It'll be easier to find, because sometimes at conferences, there's only, Kelly, I will happily have a beer with you, but there's only so many people I can do that with before I'm either not making the conference the next day. There's only 2 nights, right? But if you're involved in the volunteer stuff, you're beginning to start to find the people who you like, who are sharing your journey.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to find, and the volunteering is a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. ACA will be happy to hear that, Steve. It's almost like they have a plug on here. I like that. I would agree with that. So the last question that we wanted to ask you formally is, what do you think is something that camp owners should have on their radar for the future of our industry?
Okay, so I'm going to give you two answers. The first answer is I've seen a big trend toward the professionalization of camps. I mentioned before that our tuition rates have gone up faster than inflation. I also think parent expectations have gone up substantially higher, and we are needing to provide. Parents are less forgiving of any sort of mistakes. They're less forgiving of accidents or any social cruelty. You need to be on top of things, and it means that you can't just sort of wing it. You need to be going to conferences. You need to be hiring people to help you during orientation. You need to have other people other than just your family so you can get professional quality people. We need to professionalize. Mm-hmm. And also that generally means that we need to be a little bit larger so that we can financially support those people. So I'm seeing a trend toward larger camps, more professional camps, higher parent expectations. And I think the camps that are sort of, there's a smallness size where you're just right at the edge of the death spiral. That's a tough place to be. And you need to figure out a way to get past it. And if it's, my recommendation is doing the sort of things you're doing, Kelly, which is be bold and say, even if I'm not sure I can hire a full-time person, I need to do that so that I can spend more time recruiting new families and someone else can do these administrative tasks, or I can do these tasks while this new person does the marketing. I also just think we're going to deal with some really interesting societal questions. And I'm only going to just put it out there because if you haven't started to think about it, you're going to need to, is people have gotten excited about how do we deal with transgender bathrooms. It's going to be a real issue for camps, particularly overnight camps. I'm not even going to begin to tell you what I think the answers are because I don't begin to have them. But if you're not thinking about it, you're kind of sticking your head in the sand because that's going to be something we're going to need to have good language about. Because if our job is to make sure kids and families feel safe and supported, this is going to be an area that makes a lot of people uncomfortable or concerned, and it's something we're going to have to figure out the right way to deal with. So that's me being controversial, and I promised myself I wasn't going to be controversial.
Well, I mean, I think it's just the reality of way things have changed and how we have to adapt and continue to be at the forefront at providing experiences for everybody. So I think that we can't hide ourselves from the issues at hand, and I think that's one of some, including some others that the industry is going to have to take on for sure. So I'm glad you went there. If you felt uncomfortable, you have permission to bring those topics up for sure. Very necessary. Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say controversial. I would say aware. And I think camp should be proud that conversation is happening and that it's not something we're waiting for every other industry to tackle. It's something that should be a topic. So I think that's great, Steve.
Okay.
So Howie.
Yeah.
I don't remember if you or I should start this inspirational moment.
Well, no, our planning, this was all you, Kelly. You inspired.
It's me?
Yes, you inspired us to include this in the wrap up of the episode.
Okay. So with that intro, something that we talked about, Steve, was that we want to have on each show talking with our guests about something that inspires us right now, because I think that's really important as a camp owner, and especially a private camp. The passion is fueled within you or within your partner. And so what is inspiring you right now in this industry or in your life? It can be a book, an article, a podcast, documentary, a leader. But what is something that you would say right now, Steve, that is serving as your inspiration?
I am almost obsessed with the work that is coming out of Angela Duckworth, Carol Dweck, and David Yeager. David Yeager is actually going to be one of the keynotes at ACA. He's actually a friend. Paul Tuff recommended that I meet him about 10 years ago when we were doing a study to see if having KIP students at camp would help them at school. And the reason I'm interested in his work is it focuses on mindsets, and mindsets change the way a child learns. If I believe I can become more intelligent through hard work, that's different than believing I'm either smart or dumb. If I believe that I belong, that's different than thinking I'll never belong. And it turns out that you can change or improve a child's mindset in very short, distinct interventions, some of which are just 30 to 40 minutes long. Well, we have this 1 week, 2 week, 3 week intervention that can help children get better mindsets, get better narratives. And if you could change a child who believes that every problem's a boulder, every rock is a boulder to every rock is a pebble, if you can get them to believe that every problem is an opportunity in disguise, that changes the way they learn, the way they approach their lives. And so the way I've started to think of education is school is where you learn content. And you need content. It takes a long time to learn the subjunctive or algebra or calculus. But a mindset, it's like you've supercharged the engine. So we learn for 9 months, we go to camp, we get an elevated narrative, an elevated mindset. And now when we learn the next year, we're doing it with more horsepower. And then we go through that year and we elevate again. So my 2 inspirations are, what can we do at camp to maximize the change and improvement in a child's mindsets? And then how the heck can we get it to a broad range of kids from all socioeconomic and ethnic backgrounds, instead of the traditional population, which skews to Caucasian, upper middle class kids for the most part. So my inspiration is to try to get this to all kids, but thinking of camp as a mechanism to change and improve mindsets. Wow. And then they can become better learners.
David Yeager had a great article in the recent ACA magazine that came out. I just read that about mindset. So I'm excited about his keynote as well. Yeah. All right, Howie, what is inspiring you right now?
Well, staff development is always on my mind. I've been a coach at the high school level, club. Volleyball is my thing, and coaching boys volleyball has been my thing. So helping development, but at camp, staff training, staff development has really been on my thing. And I really like, I love quotes. I love getting groups of people to examine the power of a quote and see how it's related to the work we're going to do daily with each other and of course with the kids. And if you haven't already subscribed to this, I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, simonsinek.com. Every day in my inbox, I get notes to inspire, daily emails with quotes. I compile them all through the year, and then I go through an exercise where how are some of these going to be incorporated into staff training, how to, I think that there's a lot of opportunities to springboard into what we're going to accomplish this summer through that. And I have found that resource to be pretty inspirational, and it gets people, motivated after a year of school and being in classrooms to sort of challenge themselves to how can we make this next experience for our community that much better. So notes to inspire from Simon Sinek.
All right. Mine is a book I read recently over break called How to Raise Successful People by Esther. I'm not going to pronounce her name correct, but I want to say it's Wojcicki. So I'm sorry, Esther, if you're listening to this podcast. But she has a quote in there that I think I don't think I know, it really fueled me over break and going into the new year, and I include this in my message to my families. But she said in there that the single most important behavior that you can role model for your children is the ability to have functional relationships. And that to me speaks to camp, is that we have this ability to role model healthy, connected relationships that are functional for kids. So that inspired me, and as a parent, but also as a camp owner.
Wonderful.
So after this, Steve, if we have guests that would love to get a hold of you and find out more about Camp Champion or about anything else that you've talked about, how can they get a hold of you?
Okay, well, our camp is Camp Champions, and our website is campchampions.com. I'm Steve B, STEVEB as in Baskin, at campchampions.com. Those are the best ways to either find out about Camp Champions or to reach out to me.
All right. Howie, how can they get a hold of you?
So I can be found at Howie, Howie, at camprobinhood.ca. Yes, Canada. And and feel free to explore what we do up here. And if anyone has any questions or suggestions, for future podcasts. Matt is a great source, but feel free to reach out to us individually as well.
All right. If you'd like to get a hold of me, my email is Kelly with a Y at hiddenpinesranch.com. So we just want to thank everyone for listening. We hope that you will tune in for our next episode at the end of February, which we will discuss the world of camp insurance and how it applies to all of us. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. Steve, this has been a pleasure as my first time getting to meet you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this today with us.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure for me as well.
Thanks so much, Steve.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. See you next time, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Camp Owners Podcast. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. And don't forget, you can find our show notes at gocamp.pro/ownerspod. Thanks for listening, Camp Pros. Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, masterclass, from the Summer Camp Professionals group, a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, it'll encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their ideas and make the camp industry as a whole better.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.